My fiancée said, "Your mom can't walk you down the aisle. She's in a wheelchair and it'll look weird in photos." I said, "Then there won't be an aisle." I canceled the wedding that same day and posted a photo of me and my mom with the caption, "The only woman I need by my side," when her family flooded my comments. Original post: I, 31 male, was supposed to get married in 6 weeks. Supposed to. Past tense. And I want to be clear right up front. I don't regret a single thing I did. Not the cancellation. Not the post. Not the look on her face when I handed her back the ring. Nothing. My mom has been in a wheelchair since I was 11. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. Hit the driver's side of her car, doing about 50. She spent 4 months in the hospital. Multiple spinal surgeries. She was 34 years old, a single mom working 2 jobs, and one Tuesday afternoon some guy with a .19 BAC took her ability to walk. She never complained. Not once. She wheeled herself to every single one of my baseball games, sat in the rain during my high school graduation because the accessible seating was uncovered, worked from her wheelchair, doing medical billing from home so she could still provide for me. This woman is the toughest human being I've ever known, and I will go to war for her without hesitation. That's not a figure of speech. My ex-fiancée knew all of this. She met my mom on our 3rd date because I don't hide my mom and I don't date people who'd want me to. She was great about it first. Helped my mom with groceries, came to Sunday dinners, the whole thing. My mom loved her. Genuinely. She told me once, "I think you found a good one, baby." That memory actually makes me nauseous now. The wedding planning started about 8 months ago. It was mostly fine early on. Venue, flowers, caterer, the usual stuff. I told my fiancée from day one that my mom would be the one to escort me down the aisle. My dad hasn't been in the picture since I was 3. My mom raised me alone. She's walking me down, or in this case, rolling me down. That was always the plan. My fiancée said, "Of course," and I thought that was settled. 3 weeks ago, we were at her parents' house for dinner. Her mom, her dad, her older sister, and her sister's husband. After dinner, we were going over some wedding details, seating, chart stuff, timeline for photos, that kind of thing. Her mom had this massive binder she'd been building. Very type A energy. Fine, whatever, she's excited. Then her mom flipped to a page about the processional and said, "So we need to talk about the aisle situation." I said, "What situation?" My fiancée jumped in before her mom could respond. She'd clearly rehearsed this. She said, "Babe, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I want to talk about the processional. I think it would be better if maybe your uncle walked you down instead of your mom." I asked why. She said, "And I will never forget this as long as I live, because your mom is in a wheelchair and it's going to look weird in the photos. The aisle is narrow, and the chair is going to be in all the wide shots, and it won't match the aesthetic." The aesthetic. Her sister nodded. Her mom nodded. Her dad was looking at his plate. This wasn't a spontaneous comment. This was a planned intervention. They discussed this as a family before I walked in. They sat around a table, probably in that same dining room, and decided that my mom's wheelchair was an inconvenience to their wedding photos. I didn't yell. I didn't flip the table. I just sat there for about 10 seconds, and I swear the room got longer, like I was looking at all of them from very far away. Then I said, very calmly, "Then there won't be an aisle." My fiancée laughed, like a nervous, confused laugh. "What? If my mom can't come down the aisle with me, there's no aisle. There's no wedding." Her mom said, "Oh, come on, let's not be dramatic." I stood up, looked at my fiancée, and said, "We're done. I'm calling the venue in the morning." Then I walked out, drove home in complete silence. Didn't turn on the radio, didn't call anyone, just drove. I sat in my car in the parking lot of my apartment for 20 minutes before I went inside. Then I cried, not because of her, because I was imagining having to tell my mom what they said, and the idea of her hearing those words made me sick. The next morning I did exactly what I said I would. Called the venue and canceled. Called the caterer and canceled. Fortunately, we hadn't paid most of the final balances yet, just deposits. I lost about $4,200 total across all the deposits that were non-refundable. My money, by the way, I'd paid every deposit myself because she said she was saving for the honeymoon, which in retrospect I'm not sure was even true. I texted my fiancée, I've canceled all the vendors. I need to ring back. I'll come get my things from your place this weekend. She called me 19 times that day. I didn't pick up. Her text started out apologetic. I didn't mean it like that. You're overreacting. Let's talk about this. And by evening, they were angry. You're really going to throw away 3 years over one comment? One comment. That's how she framed it. Like she'd mispronounced something at dinner, and I was ending things over grammar. Not over the fact that she wanted to hide my disabled mother from wedding photos, like she was some kind of set design flaw. That night, I was at my mom's place for dinner. She could tell something was off, but she didn't push. After we ate, I took a photo of us at her kitchen table. Nothing staged. She was smiling. I was leaning my head against hers. I posted it on Instagram with the caption, "The only woman I need by my side." I didn't tag my fiancée. I didn't mention the wedding. I didn't say a word about what happened. Just the photo and the caption. And then I put my phone down and watched Jeopardy with my mom. By the time I checked my phone before bed, I had over 100 notifications. Turns out my fiancé's sister had seen the post, screenshot it, and sent it to their entire family. Her mom commented publicly, "This is incredibly disrespectful to our family after everything we've done for you." Her sister commented, "Emotional manipulation at its finest." Her cousin, who I've met literally twice, commented, "Imagine ruining a wedding because of your ego." My ego. My ego. I wanted my mom at my wedding, and I have an ego problem. Make it make sense. I deleted every comment from her family. Didn't respond to any of them. Didn't engage. Just removed them. That apparently made things worse because her sister then posted on her page a long paragraph about people who air dirty laundry for attention and narcissists who use social media to control narratives. She didn't name me, but she didn't have to. My phone has been ringing nonstop. I'm keeping it on silent. I told my mom a simplified version, that the wedding was off because of fundamental differences in values. She looked at me for a long time and said, "This is about me, isn't it?" I said no. She said, "Don't lie to your mother." So I told her, not the exact words, but enough. She was quiet for a minute, and then she said, "I'm sorry, baby." And I said, "You have absolutely nothing to be sorry for." And I meant that with everything in me. So yeah, wedding's off. I'm out $4,200 in deposits. My ex-fiancé's family is treating me like a monster. And I'd do it all again tomorrow. Update 1, 8 days later. I genuinely didn't think this update would be as long as it's going to be, but the last week and a half has been one of the most exhausting experiences of my life. Strap in. The weekend after my original post, I went to my ex's apartment to collect my things. I brought my buddy from work with me because, honestly, I didn't trust the situation to stay civil. Good call on my part. She answered the door with swollen eyes. I could tell she'd been crying a lot, and despite everything, that did hit me somewhere. 3 years is 3 years. I'm not a robot, but I kept my face neutral and said, "I'm just here for my stuff." She let me in. My buddy waited in the living room while I packed. It took about 40 minutes, clothes, my PS5, some books, a few kitchen things I'd bought. While I was packing the bedroom, she sat on the bed and started talking. You know, I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I kept packing. My mom was the one who brought it up first. She was worried about the photos looking uneven. I was just trying to find a compromise. I stopped. A compromise where my mom doesn't come down the aisle with me is not a compromise. That's an ultimatum with polite wrapping. She went quiet. Then, "So you're really not going to even consider counseling or talking this through?" There's nothing to talk through. You wanted my mom hidden because she's in a wheelchair. I don't want to marry someone who thinks like that. I don't think like that. It was one conversation. It was a planned conversation. Your whole family was there. You rehearsed it. That's not a slip-up. That's a position. She didn't have a response to that. I finished packing and left. She followed me to the door and said, "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." I said, "Maybe, but it won't be the one I regret." My buddy told me in the car that while I was in the bedroom, she came out to the living room and tried to get him to talk sense into me. He said he told her, "I've met his mom. You're lucky he only canceled the wedding. I owe that guy a steak dinner." Now here's where things escalated. For days after I picked up my things, I got a call from my fiancé's dad. Not a text, a call. This man barely spoke to me during the 3 years I was with his daughter. I could count on one hand the number of real conversations we'd had. But now, suddenly, he had a lot to say. He started off reasonable enough. Son, I think this has gotten out of hand. Weddings are stressful. People say things they don't mean. Classic minimizing, but at least he was being calm about it. Then he said, we spent a lot of money on this wedding too. My wife and I paid for the flowers and the rehearsal dinner. That's over $6,000 we're not getting back. I said, I understand that, and I'm sorry about the financial loss. But your wife and daughter told me my mom in a wheelchair would ruin the photos. I'm not apologizing for my reaction to that. Long pause. Then he shifted. Look, my daughter is a mess. She's barely eating. She hasn't gone to work in 3 days. You need to at least talk to her. I have talked to her. I said what I needed to say. You're being incredibly stubborn. I'm being consistent. He hung up on me. First real conversation the man initiates in 3 years, and he hangs up on me. Cool. That same week, her sister started a new approach. She somehow got my mom's phone number, I still don't know how, and called my mom directly. She told my mom that I was having a breakdown and destroying everyone's life over a misunderstanding. She asked my mom to talk to me and help me see reason. My mom, absolute legend that she is, told her, my son is a grown man who makes his own decisions. And from what I understand, the reason he made this one is because your family has a problem with my wheelchair. So respectfully, don't call this number again. When my mom told me about that call, I saw red. Genuinely. Going around me to get to my mom, a woman in a wheelchair who they literally just insulted to try to manipulate the situation, I was shaking. I texted my ex, your sister called my mom. Tell your family that if anyone contacts my mother again, I'm blocking every single one of you, and the next conversation will be through a lawyer. Her response, she was just trying to help. Everyone is trying to help, and you keep pushing people away. This is why your dad left BTW. I'm going to let you sit with that one for a second. She brought up my absent father, a man who abandoned his family when I was 3 years old, as a weapon. In a text, during an argument about her family insulting my disabled mother. I screenshot that text, not because I was going to post it, not because I was building a case. I screenshot it because I wanted a permanent reminder of who this person actually is underneath the 3 years of Sunday dinners, and I love yous. That text is who she is when she's not getting what she wants. I didn't respond. I blocked her number, blocked her sister, blocked her mom. Her dad was already blocked after the phone call. I went scorched earth on the whole family, and I don't feel an ounce of guilt about it. 2 days of silence. Beautiful, peaceful silence. Then a mutual friend started. Our friend group is mixed, some mine, some hers, some shared. The shared ones started reaching out one by one. Most of them had clearly heard her version, which I'm guessing didn't include the wheelchair comment or the text about my dad. My closest friend in the group called me and said, hey man, she's telling everyone you called off the wedding because her mom made a comment about seating arrangements and you blew it out of proportion. That's not what happened, is it? I told him the truth. All of it. The wheelchair comment, the planned ambush at dinner, the photo aesthetic concern, and the text about my dad. He was quiet for a long time, then said, bro, that's disgusting. He told 2 other friends. They told others. Within a couple of days, the narrative in our friend group shifted hard. Not because I was campaigning, I told exactly one person. But the truth has a way of doing the heavy lifting once it's out there. Her version of events started collapsing. People started asking her directly, did you really say the wheelchair would look weird in photos? And apparently her response was, that's not what I meant, and he's twisting my words. But she couldn't explain what she did mean, because there's no good way to spin, your disabled mom will mess up the aesthetic. A few mutual friends quietly stopped responding to her. 2 of them texted me separately to say they were sorry and that they had my back. One of them, a girl who'd been friends with my ex since college, told me, I love her, but I can't defend that. My grandpa was in a wheelchair his whole life. That comment would have ended it for me, too. It wasn't all clean, though. Her best friend, who I actually got along with pretty well, sent me a message calling me vindictive and saying I was poisoning the friend group against her. I told her I told exactly one person what happened and the rest took care of itself. She didn't respond to that. Update 2, 12 days later. Okay, last update. For real this time. I need to put this whole thing to bed and move on with my life. When I last left off, the friend group had largely sided with me after the truth came out. Her family was blocked on everything, and I was in full no-contact mode. What I didn't mention is that the financial cleanup from the canceled wedding was still ongoing and getting uglier. Remember how I said I paid all the deposits? For $1,200 across the venue, caterer, DJ, and photographer. All non-refundable. All from my savings. Well, after her dad called me about the $6,000 they'd spent on flowers and the rehearsal dinner, I figured that was the end of the money conversation. It was not. I got a letter. An actual physical letter sent to my apartment. From her parents. It was typed, printed, and signed by both of them. The letter stated that because I unilaterally canceled the wedding without mutual consent, I was morally and financially responsible for reimbursing them for all wedding-related expenses they had incurred, totaling $6,340. It included an itemized list, line items for the flower arrangements, the rehearsal dinner deposit, a non-refundable alteration fee for her dress, and, this one killed me, a $200 charge for the calligraphy on the Save the Dates. They wanted me to pay for calligraphy on Save the Dates for a wedding that was canceled because their daughter said my mom's wheelchair would ruin photos. I showed the letter to a lawyer friend of mine. He read it, laughed, and said, "This is toilet paper. They have zero legal standing. You weren't married. There's no contract between you and her parents, and the cancellation wasn't a breach of anything. They can send all the letters they want." He told me to keep the letter, but not to respond. So I didn't. A week later, I got another letter. Same tone, same itemized list, but this time with a line at the bottom that said, "If reimbursement is not received within 30 days, we will explore all available legal avenues." My lawyer friend said the same thing. Let them explore. They'll spend more on a consultation than they'd ever recover. I'll be honest, that second letter rattled me a little. Not because I thought they had a case, but because the escalation was exhausting. Every time I thought this was over, there was another chapter, another text, another letter, another flying monkey showing up in my DMs. But the thing that really got to me happened about a week after the second letter. My mom called me on a random Tuesday evening. She was quiet, which is unlike her. She said her neighbor, who knows my ex's family through church, had made a comment to her after service that Sunday. Something along the lines of, "I heard the wedding was called off because of some accessibility issue. That must be hard for you, knowing you were part of the reason." My mom said she just smiled and said, "My son did the right thing." But I could hear it in her voice. She was hurt, not because of me, because the narrative out there in her own community was that she was the problem, that her wheelchair was the inconvenience that blew everything up. That was the lowest point for me in this whole thing. Not the canceled wedding. Not the $4,200. Not the letters from her parents. It was my mom sitting in church and having someone imply to her face that she was the reason her son's wedding fell apart. I drove over to her place that night. We didn't talk about the wedding. We watched a cooking competition show, and she made me tea and told me a story about something dumb her cat did that afternoon. Normal stuff. But when I left, she squeezed my hand and said, "I'm proud of you, you know." And I just nodded because I couldn't talk without losing it. Okay, now the resolution. Here's what happened with the financial threat. They didn't sue me. Of course they didn't. My lawyer friend was right. They had nothing. I learned through the grapevine that her dad actually did consult an attorney, who apparently told him the same thing mine told me, and they dropped it. The letters stopped. No more itemized lists. No more legal avenues. Here's what happened with the friend group. It settled out roughly 70/30ths in my favor, which is about what I expected. The people who were closer to her stayed with her. The people who were closer to me, or who heard the full story, came to my side. A few people stayed neutral, which I respect. The friend group is effectively split, and I don't think it's going back together. That's fine. I kept the people who matter. Her best friend unblocked me briefly to send me one final message. "I hope you know you ruined her life. She's moving back in with her parents. She had to give up her apartment because she can't afford it alone since you were supposed to be living together after the wedding. She's in therapy. She's lost weight. This is on you." I read that message, and I'm not going to lie, it stung. Because I'm human, and I don't want anyone to suffer. But I also know the chain of events here. She and her family made a calculated decision to exclude my mom. I responded, and here we are. The person who lit the match doesn't get to blame someone else for the fire. I didn't respond to the message. Here's what happened with the ring. She gave it back. It took 3 weeks and one very awkward exchange through a mutual friend. She put it in a Ziploc bag, which felt pointed, but I got it back. I sold it to a jeweler for about 60% of what I paid, which was $3,100 on a ring I'd bought for $5,200. Not great, but it covered most of the deposit losses. Financially, I came out down about $1,100 total, which for a cancel wedding is honestly not bad. Here's where I am now. I'm in my apartment. It's a Tuesday night. I'm eating leftover Thai food from last night, and there's a basketball game on that I'm half watching. My mom called me earlier to remind me that I need to get my oil changed, which I do, and which I'll forget to do for another 2 weeks probably. My buddy from work, the one who came with me to pick up my stuff, invited me to poker night this weekend. I'll probably go. I don't have some dramatic final act of revenge to share. I didn't expose her on social media. I didn't send a screenshot of the "that's why your dad left" text to anyone. I didn't go on a campaign to destroy her reputation. I just stopped. I stopped engaging. I stopped explaining. I stopped trying to make her or her family see what they did wrong, because they're never going to. In her version of this story, she'll always be the woman whose fiancé overreacted and blew up a wedding over a photo concern. And in my version, I'll always be the guy who chose his mom. I'm good with my version. The last thing I'll say is this. A lot of people in my DMs have said things like you'll find the right person and she's out there. Maybe. I hope so. But honestly, right now, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about the fact that my mom has a birthday coming up next month, and I want to do something really nice for her. Something that makes her feel celebrated and not like she's a burden or an inconvenience or a problem to be solved with creative seating arrangements. Because she's none of those things. She's the reason I'm any good at all. And any woman who can't see that isn't someone I want standing next to me at any altar. That's it. I'm out. Thanks for listening. Go call your moms.